kiss for you.
All right, we're looking at the worst tech events of 2024 and into 2025. These are going to be different than the worst tech products because they're also looking at things like general events and culture around what has taken place. This is not talking about the Intel CPU issues because I covered that in the last video on the products, the tech products of disasters. This is more talking about the future ones. So after the CPU issues, 13th and 14th gen had all the issues breaking all the stuff, Intel released their Ultra series, and I talked about in my Stop Naming Things Stupid Names video, where I was talking about how bad the naming scheme for this stuff was. This is effectively what I had thought, at least originally. This was their 15th gen, right? This was their next thing after their disastrous launch of the 13th and 14th generation after the fact, right? Those launched well and then had the issues after. Their Ultra series here was the next iteration. It originally started in laptops only and then made its way over to desktops. The problem is, I wonder if it's here, 165H, 165U, 185. I think these are the easier ones. I'm thinking of the Core Ultra 265K. I believe this is the main CPU upgrade that for like desktop use. And this thing was not very good because actually in benchmarks, it did not perform even nearly as well as the other ones did, right? You can see on this list here, especially at something like F1, you're getting worse performance. You can see for Cinebench, if we compare it to other things, right, you're getting extremely similar performance. But oftentimes, in a lot of these graphs, you were getting worse performance. Like it was not running as well as the 14th gen or 14th gen was, especially with the optimizations there in a lot of titles. Now, what it was doing is it was more efficient. However, that efficiency was not actually in benefit. I mean, it was in benefit. It was like, it's good that it's more efficient, but compared to like the AMD stuff, it was not like that interesting or that like noteworthy. It was important compared to Intel because other previous Intel CPUs had hit like 100 watt or 125 watt TDP. So this being a much more normal 65 watt is definitely good, but there was a lot of issues relating to how it was able to use a lot of those cores that it kind of just became a little bit of a disaster over time, I would say. I think generally speaking now the software is kind of caught up, but for a while there it was extremely rough going in terms of both not only the price being like around the same, but the fact that it wasn't a clear boost in performance and more so just an efficiency gain. Isn't something that a lot of people really cared about. More so the fact that if your system is built, so let's just go with like a Corsair PC case or something, right? Like these cases are built in a certain way, and let's say it's pre-built from whatever company and they have all this stuff in there. It's already being built up effectively with the fans and the power supply to expect a high wattage Intel CPU, right? So swapping this in, the old one in for the Ultra series here, doesn't really do a ton because that efficiency doesn't let you do much. Like the efficiency, other than cutting down on your power bill, doesn't let you make a smaller PC unless you're building a PC from scratch, right? So the fact that it's more efficient doesn't really help it when it's in like an architecture or in a case and a design that is meant to take advantage of the fact that your Intel CPU is blasting 200 watts, right? So the efficiency gains didn't really manifest themselves that well, considering most other 13th, 14th gen computers were not built, small. They were not built for the new efficiency. They were effectively just built for any efficiency. You want to put a Ryzen in there, it lets you do that, right? So you didn't really see those gains that well. So I would say that's the second fail, is that the fact that these Intel CPUs, the Ultra ones, did not improve performance, were about the same price, and their efficiency gains were absolutely not being able to be felt due to just the general nature of how things like that were built. Next up here, CrowdStrike. This goes back to sort of more security-focused things. CrowdStrike is a, cybersecurity company. I would describe them as, although they do a variety of things relating to IT system security and network stuff. But the big thing is the Falcon sensor. Now, I believe this locked out drives that were required to access most, because like most companies have encrypted drives that they need to use for a variety of reasons for security and stuff. And what was happening is the Falcon sensor, security sensor, was like blocking access to people's computers. to be able to like, do anything on, because it was detecting an issue and malware, right? A file was a malicious behavior detected. It locked them out of the computer. They couldn't reset it, so they had to go around and manually resetting every single computer, which was not good, because the system that, your management system, your mobile management system, was also on a computer that used Falcon sensor, right? So it's like, oh no, everything's broken. And the reason this is important is because it destroyed a lot of stuff, right? You can see here, it destroyed basically anything that was running on a computer. It required manually restarting each one, and so it was quite a bit of a disaster, and that was caused by CrowdStrike's Falcon sensor security thing relating to the encryption of the drives. So that was a massive issue, massive problems there, right? And that lasted for a good while. I remember at least a 24-hour, 30-hour period where everything was down, right? And that just kind of showcased the reliance we have on a lot of these technologies. Speaking of reliance on technologies, Apple Intelligence. Now, obviously, people know the story about Apple Intelligence by now in terms of the false promises that it tried to give. The bigger annoyance is the fact that it's context-based stuff. Its ability to do this thing of like, hey, I want to send 5 photos from my most recent trip to wherever to someone, and it just does that, grabs your photos, gets them from the context, and sends them. None of that exists. Even in the latest build, even in iOS 26 currently, none of this stuff exists, right? It's all not theoretical, but it's just not working. Like, you'll ask it to do that, and it will bring up a thing like here that tells you how to do it. It writes out the steps, but it doesn't actually do it for you. This is a similar thing we had with Copilot when that tried to do a similar thing and pretend that it was going to magically like work on Word docs for you and create PowerPoints from that. Similar issue where it's like, hey, you can theoretically do this, but then you actually go to implement its ability and you're like, oh, wow, that doesn't work at all. So that's pretty much how Apple Intelligence is operating now, to where we're finally at a point where it's not just like, oh, it's vaporware. Because vaporware is a thing where it's like, unless it's canceled, vaporware is still the opportunity for something to happen. It becomes an actual event that fails when it's actually out now. You can try out these systems here and it doesn't work at all. And it doesn't seem like it's getting better, right? So that's why I put Apple Intelligence here, is because it's finally out in terms of like the actual full scale context or whatever version is out, and is not doing anything like people hoped it would. So that is that one. Something a little bit more recent that is also a concern. You may have heard about Spotify's AI music stuff in terms of it giving you AI music generated from like Spotify's own playlists to like potentially fix the fact that it is not paying creators, or maybe, trying to avoid paying creators by just creating AI music on its own to put in like, jazzy morning playlists or whatever, right? That kind of thing. It has taken that a step farther, and it has mostly confirmed that Spotify was doing, at least partially, stuff like that, like this, right? Where it has Jazzy Morning, and it's like a Spotify-made playlist, and every single one of these names is a fake artist, right? So it had been doing that. What it has decided to do now on top of it is, as we can see here, AI-generated bands completely are just taking over. AI-generated things like that, and song titles are also happening. So it's not just Spotify doing it, it's other people, and this is allowed on the platform. But it's also DJ stuff, where it's not only mixing in AI playlists and AI musicians, but also AI features into the functionality of the app. So now it's no longer, playlists that are AI generated, it's entire curation programs. And to some extent, these have always been AI, machine learning to any capacity, but it's getting aggressive now, where it's like AI DJ. So if you just want a mix of stuff, at some point I would suspect the Discover Weekly that Spotify does gets replaced by Meet Your DJ or some other thing where it just like thinks of songs it wants to add and adds them, right? You can see that with something that they used to do. I believe one of these buttons is like the Enhance button. I don't think it used to be a feature. It might still be a feature depending on where you're at, but like oftentimes the Enhance button would just add a bunch of songs that AI think you would like in the middle of your list, and then you have to like get rid of them. It was a disaster, right? So you can see that Spotify went from like testing the waters with AI music to allowing AI bands to integrating the AI DJ thing into it, integrating the enhanced ability to add songs into your own playlist. And then, as we get to kind of what I wanted to talk about here, Wrapped, right? Spotify's Wrapped was a real disaster because on top of everything else we talked about, Spotify's Wrapped primarily was using AI to effectively generate genres for you and kind of pretend that the genres it was making up are like things relevant to what your tastes are. So instead of it even just being able to like curate a list of actually functional music, it was just kind of a disaster where it would say, hey, your genre is blibbity blubbity blue and you listen to playlist XYZ or something, right? And it was just a really impersonal, weird Spotify Wrapped. And obviously Spotify Wrapped is a small thing, but it kind of comes at the cost of like, okay, so how many things is Spotify touching? It's AI, and Spotify is touching pretty much the entire process, from songs to people to the smaller things it used to do, right? And so it's becoming a big disaster. And so I would say the AI takeover of Spotify, specifically as it relates to like its content policy and its app feature set, is really destructive and something that is relatively recent. So that definitely goes on there. Next up here is Google. Google will be verifying apps on its Google Play Store to potentially prevent side loading. Side loading is the thing on Android where if the app is not available on the Play Store, like TikTok wasn't for a while, you can download the APK. This can allow you to get apps that are not on the App Store, Google Play Store. It also lets you get apps that maybe are no longer updated or compatible with the Play Store, and it can also give you apps that maybe have exclusive betas or closed test periods, as well as apps that may not be available in your region. So it's very nice to be able to do that if, for instance, an app like TikTok, for example, goes away from the App Store, if an app is like region blocked at some point, if an app ever goes down, if like an update, for instance, on like YouTube or something prevents that app from updating or being able to be used, you can always revert back to a previous version via side loading, which you won't be able to do on the main app, right? So there's a lot of things that can be beneficial for side loading that app Google here is trying to prevent by forcing developers to basically go through an Apple-like verification process to verify that their app on the App Store is, a variety of things. This is not necessarily an issue for necessarily maybe like the apps that actually have licenses to them, like YouTube, but it could be an issue for apps, especially depending on how much that the developer actually has to go through this, because if it's all on the developer to kind of like do the verification process, then a lot of them may just be not aware of it, or it may just like not really be kind of wanting to do it, not even for any sketchy reasons, just for like having to keep up. Like if you as an app developer have like 10 different versions of the app, right, for the different regions or something, because there's a reason you might want to have whatever regional pricing, then you're going to need to submit 10 different things to Google to have those apps on the Play Store, right? And so that just becomes a large overhead that you have to keep track of, and knowing Google, they're not very good at keeping track of stuff, so it ends up being just more burden on the developer to effectively requiring them to constantly be upping their licenses effectively. We don't know if that's how it's going to play out 100%, but again, knowing Google, it's very possible that is absolutely how it goes about, and they tend to be pretty slow on fixing things when issues do arise. So that's why I put Google forcing the verification of apps relating to sideloading as the next point there. Now we get into something that I did talk about before, which may or may not be interesting here, is Microsoft's recall. Microsoft Recall is, as we mentioned before, an ability to effectively recall various versions of your desktop by taking a screenshot. Unfortunately, considering every single person has eyes, you can see that doesn't actually work that well, because security reasons, bank details, privacy to any capacity has just gone out the window. So they came back with a 2.0 that had a little bit more stringent specs, like a Copilot Plus PC meeting the Secured 1 standard, which pretty much gets rid of any PC built before 2024, just on that basis. So they made it a little bit harder for Recall to be a feature. However, they made it, I'm pretty damn sure, impossible to turn off. So once it was on, even if it wasn't doing anything, it would still occasionally take a screenshot of your page here, which is not good at all. And definitely a disaster. So even while they did fix a lot of the privacy concerns in terms of like, hey, it kind of like deletes the stuff you're doing, it's definitely a very big issue in terms of security, and should absolutely be disabled by default, not enabled by default. And as it talks about here, it's by default, I'm pretty sure it's on. So that is something that was still a big issue, and that had continued to be an issue even into the 2.0 launch of Recall there. Last three things here are more product-based, and they're kind of these next two, I would say, are pretty much just the evolution of making things shitty. AI toasters, or just not AI toasters, but toasters that use online recipes and various things like that to toast correctly, right? Biggest issue with this, just a whole bunch of things you don't need. Instead of being able to just click on the thing like you need to and toast correctly, it's like gotta use toasting algorithms for dozens of specific types of food and real-time sensors, and they click on the screen and it's like make me toast in this version and this thing, and it's just a disaster. And part of the reason it's a disaster is because I am almost positive there's a goddamn subscription here somewhere. Let me just find it. Bundles. Sorry, I'm a little getting over COVID here the past week or so I'm a little coughing a bit, a little sick here, but let's see. Yep, the Connect Plus Smart Toaster plus Toasty Press plus Warming Rack for $430. Variety of things. And from what I understand, I believe the app here, while the app itself is not paid, there is literally a limited amount of recipes. It has a built-in 30 recipes or however many it is limit on the toaster itself, and will at some point with the $13 a month subscription let you get access to recipes from the internet, which is insane because you can do that for free. You can buy a smart toaster that has a screen to do basic toasting stuff for $100, $200, right? And then just look up recipes online and plug them into the toaster instead of this thing where it's hey, $450 and a $13 a month sub to eventually be able to get access to free recipes from the internet. So this is absolutely a waste, and the reason I bring this up is because it was a highlight at CES 2025 in the January timeframe. It was a highlight. People were talking about how cool it was that this toaster exists. And I'm losing my mind. And I'm even if it didn't have a subscription, this is comically stupid. So this is absolutely another awful event because it was the highlight of CES, which just shows the downtrodden track that most of these tech products are taking. Similar thing with the D-Bot X2 robot vacuum mop thing. Why is this important? Well, you'll notice two things. The scummy tactic of it being $1,500, but actually it's $400. And the more annoying one, because it's, robot vacuums, $400 is a normal price, yada yada. Antibacterial dust bags compatible with X5 Pro, blah 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 AI models. 6 antimicrobial dust bags for $50. So these are small dust bags that are effectively filters, because a large part of this is the filtering technology, whatever, right? Issue is you have to buy their specifically compatible antibacterial dust bags made custom for this piece of shit. It's not just a robot vacuum. It's not even just a robot vacuum with an app that you subscribe to or whatever. That's pretty common. It's a robot vacuum that probably has an app, I would guarantee, that you could subscribe to that also requires special antimicrobial dust bags, which is insane. It's crazy. We're getting so much worse. It even talks about AI. It's just it's these full circle of bullshit complete products. Now, it's not horribly expensive at $400. It's a reasonable price for one of these things. But again, the fact that that's the starting price and you do, the one in with the accessory, it comes with all this crap. Look at all this shit. It's not just a robot vacuum. You got the twirlers, you got 3 of the bags, you got some spray, you got some feet, whatever the hell this thing is, some ties, the cable things. It's what the fuck? Clearance sale on your robot vacuum for $500 with 3 real 5-star reviews here. We went from robot vacuums on the iRobot level, which were expensive but cool things that you could do if you didn't want to, pay someone to clean or clean yourself, to the most overcomplicated, over-engineered disaster of a product package requiring you to buy proprietary stuff, right? And again, this was at CES and was another highlight of the CES thing, even though it had plenty of critics. And it just goes to show the cataclysmatic problem that all these tech shows are just kind of running into, where it's this isn't a product that people are going to buy. It's a showcase of stupidity. And that's really rough because it's the only thing we're getting. It always used to be you'd have some crazy wacky thing that would never go anywhere, right? But now it's the only thing is the crazy wacky thing. We don't have any actual products anymore. It's just this shit, which is very annoying. To wrap it all off with another disaster here, I talked about this a little bit in a couple comments that I made about the Samsung event, but the Galaxy Fold 7, while it is a very nice phone and does have some improvements compared to its predecessor, it is a $2,000 phone, right? Now, the problem isn't the fact that it's a $2,000 phone, it's the fact that the Galaxy 5 was $1,800, the Galaxy 6 was $1,900, and the Galaxy 7 was $2,000. This device has increased $300 in the last 3 years. That is insane. It has increased by $100 every single time with no actual advantages compared to the previous one. Obviously, it's thinner. Obviously, they've affected the crease and all that. There are improvements here. But to say that a 5 is $300 less than a 7 is insane. It's just ridiculous. Like a 5, it was like $1,700, then $1,800, then $1,900, now it's $2,000. And you know it's Samsung, so these things are going to drop like a brick, and you'll be able to get it for $1,200 soon, right? But that's just the thing. Also, I'm really tired. I mentioned this in one of the Apple videos I made talking about price comparisons. I've done a couple of those. I talked about how it was very stupid that, it's a 256 gig thing here, base price, and people complain about Apple doing that. Samsung does the same thing, non-expandable options for a $120 increase of base storage to double it, right? And they still started at base 256 and you're paying $2,000. So don't keep complaining about Apple, complain about Samsung. Google does the same shit. It's all the same. So this fact that it's $2,000 and they just kept increasing the price $100 every time is just a crazy lack of understanding of where the consumer is. And this isn't just the Fold, by the way. They did this to the Ultra series and the base series as well. They were a little bit more conservative with the base, but even Apple hasn't done that. Like the Ultra is $1,300 starting. It used to be $1,100. My S21 Ultra here was $1,100 for a bit. They have, the S22 and stuff that was like S23 I think was $1,200. It's $1,300, right? And they got rid of the mobile S Pen. They got rid of like I wonder if I can find it. They got rid of the like S Pen Bluetooth option, so it's just the base one. Right here, right? So they got rid of one of the benefits of the Bluetooth S Pen, and they increased the price. So it's just kind of this disaster here that I would say really is not good because you can get, other options on other phones, and you can just get last year. So I don't really understand what Samsung's doing. Obviously, the idea might be, they can just charge more, but I don't think that's the case. I really do think that something changed recently where they just don't care and they're just increasing the price, because it used to be relatively competitive with Apple, and now I think Apple pretty handsomely, especially with performance and stuff, kind of clowns on a lot of what Samsung is doing with their top-end lineup, at least. So those are all the examples that I had, about 10 there, of products and experiences and kind of events that are just really rough and really showcasing how not well the companies are kind of adapting to the fact of things increasing in price. And just kind of how that's operating. Like, even a couple years ago, you could reasonably assume that an event like CES would be pretty hype because it's talking about the most powerful and interesting tech that we can get and have access to. And instead, most of the events just showcasing AI toasters and bargain bin level stuff that we had seen for 10, 15 years, right? Same thing with the Apple event we had recently, right? It's just becoming a lot of the same noise, and that noise is becoming significantly more grating on the ears. So hopefully this was interesting. If you like this kind of stuff and want to see more of these list kind of things on the channel, make sure to like, subscribe, do all that, and I'll see everyone in the next video.